The water comes out of your tap every single day. You turn the handle, it flows, you drink it, you cook with it, you wash with it, you flush with it, you never think about it. And that is exactly the problem. Because the moment you start looking at what is actually happening behind that tap, behind the infrastructure, behind the headlines most people scroll past, behind the reports that get buried under louder news, you start to realize that Britain's water system is not nearly as bulletproof as it feels. And nobody in any official position is in a hurry to make that obvious to you. Welcome back. If you are building a calmer, more prepared household in the UK, subscribe now and comment below whether you have ever experienced a boil notice, a burst main, low pressure, or discolored water where you live. Because I think the answers are going to surprise a lot of people watching this. Now let me say this clearly before we go any further, because I am not here to terrify you. The UK has one of the better treated water supplies in the world. That is true. On a normal day, in normal conditions, your tap water is safe and reliable. I am not disputing that. But here is what that reassurance leaves out. The system that delivers that water to your home is old. It is underinvested. It is under pressure from climate, from demand, from infrastructure decay, and from a funding model that has prioritized shareholder returns over pipe replacement for decades. And the people who understand that best are not panicking. They are just quietly making sure their household does not depend entirely on everything working perfectly all the time. Because that is a very different thing from saying the water is not safe today. It is saying the system that brings it to you is more fragile than most people realize. And fragile systems do not send you a warning letter before they fail. They just fail. Usually at the worst possible time. Usually when something else is already going wrong. So let me walk you through what is actually happening with UK water infrastructure right now. And then I will tell you exactly what a sensible household should do about it, without spending a fortune or losing sleep. The pipes are older than most people imagine. Britain is sitting on a water network that includes pipes laid in the Victorian era. Not the Victorian style, the actual Victorian era. There are mains in this country that have been in the ground for over 100 years. And while some of those pipes are remarkably resilient, the network as a whole is aging in a way that creates constant low-level failure. Burst mains are not rare events in Britain. They happen every single day somewhere in the country. Most of them get fixed quickly, and most people never notice. But each one is a reminder that the system is held together by maintenance, not by strength. And maintenance depends on investment, and investment depends on priorities. And for a very long time, the priority has not been replacing pipes fast enough to keep up with the rate they are deteriorating. Leakage is still enormous. This is the figure that should bother everyone. UK water companies lose billions of liters of treated water every single day through leaks. Think about that for a second. Water that has already been collected, treated, cleaned, pumped, and pushed into the network is leaking out of broken pipes and joints before it ever reaches your tap. Billions of liters, every day. And while the companies have targets to reduce leakage, the progress has been painfully slow relative to the scale of the problem. That matters because every liter lost to leakage is a liter that is not available for your household. And in a system that is already under pressure from rising demand and changing weather patterns, losing that volume every single day is not a small thing. It is a structural weakness that sits underneath everything else. Demand is growing and supply is not keeping pace. Britain's population has grown significantly over the past 2 decades, and it continues to grow. More people means more demand on the same water network. More households, more bathrooms, more appliances, more consumption. And while demand has climbed, the UK has not built a major new reservoir in decades. Let that sink in. The country has added millions of people and almost no new large-scale water storage. The system is being asked to do more with infrastructure that was designed for a smaller population and a different climate. That is not a conspiracy. That is just maths. And the maths gets worse every year. Climate is changing the equation. Britain used to be the country where rain was a joke and a guarantee. Not anymore. The last few years have shown a pattern that should make anyone paying attention uncomfortable. Hotter, drier summers. More intense rainfall that runs off hard ground instead of soaking into reservoirs. Longer dry spells that put pressure on water tables and river levels. And then sudden heavy downpours that overwhelm drainage systems and cause flooding without actually solving the supply problem because the water moves too fast to be captured usefully. The old assumption that Britain will always have enough rain is no longer a safe assumption. It probably still has enough rain overall across the year, but the distribution is changing, the timing is changing, and the infrastructure was not built for the pattern that is emerging. Drought orders and hosepipe bans used to feel like rare oddities. They are becoming more frequent, and each time they happen, people are shocked as if it came from nowhere. It did not come from nowhere. It came from a system that has less margin than people think. Contamination events are more common than people realize. Boil notices happen in the UK. Not every day and not everywhere, but far more often than most people are aware of. A burst main, a treatment fault, a pressure drop, storm runoff entering the system, infrastructure failure at a treatment works. Any of these can trigger a localized contamination event where your tap water is temporarily not safe to drink without boiling. And when that happens, the response is usually the same. A notice goes out, sometimes quickly, sometimes not quickly enough. People scramble for bottled water, shops run out fast, and for a period of hours or sometimes days, households that assumed the tap would always be safe are suddenly without their most basic resource. Most of these events are small and resolved quickly, but they reveal something important. The system has single points of failure that can take your water away with no warning and no preparation time. Sewage and treatment pressures are mounting. You have seen the headlines. Raw sewage discharges into rivers and coastal waters have become a major story in Britain, and for good reason. The treatment infrastructure is under enormous strain. Combined sewer systems that handle both rainwater and sewage overflow during heavy rainfall, and that overflow goes into waterways. This is not just an environmental story, it is a water quality story. Because the health of the rivers and groundwater that feed into the treatment system affects the quality and cost of the water that comes out of your tap. The more polluted the source water, the harder and more expensive it is to treat. And when storms intensify and systems overflow more frequently, the pressure on the entire cycle increases. So that is the picture. Aging pipes, massive leakage, rising demand, no major new storage, changing rainfall patterns, contamination risks, sewage pressure. None of these things individually mean your tap is going to stop working tomorrow, but stacked together, they paint a portrait of a system that is running with far less margin than most British households assume. And the households that understand that are not panicking. They are preparing. Quietly, sensibly, and without drama. So here's what you should actually do. Store water now. Not because disaster is coming tomorrow, because the single easiest and cheapest thing you can do to protect your household from any water disruption is to already have water stored before it happens. 2 to 3 liters per person per day for a minimum of 3 days. More if you have children. More if you have pets. More if you have elderly family members or anyone with medical needs. Use clean, food-grade containers. Store them somewhere cool and dark. Rotate them every few months. This costs you almost nothing, and it buys you something money cannot buy in the middle of a boil notice. Time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to not be the person queuing at the supermarket with everyone else hoping there is still a bottle of water left on the shelf. Get a water filter. A decent gravity-fed water filter or a pump filter gives you the ability to make questionable water safe. If your tap is running but under a boil notice, a good filter handles that. If you are collecting rainwater as a backup, a good filter handles that. If the mains are running at low pressure and the water looks off, a good filter gives you confidence. This is not an expensive item. It is not a complicated item, but it is an item that gives you options when the system gives you uncertainty. Buy one. Learn how to use it before you need it. Keep spare filter elements. And test it once so you know exactly what you are working with. Understand your local risk. Not every area of Britain faces the same water pressure. Some regions are already classified as seriously water stressed. Some areas rely on a single reservoir or a single treatment works. Some postcodes have older infrastructure that is more prone to bursts and failures. Spend 10 minutes finding out where your water comes from, how it gets to you, and what your local water company's track record looks like on incidents and investment. That knowledge alone puts you ahead of 90% of households who have no idea what sits between the reservoir and their kitchen tap. Have a plan for no water days. Think through what your household would actually do if the tap stopped flowing for 48 hours. How would you drink? How would you cook? How would you wash? How would you flush? Most families have never thought about this for even 5 minutes, and then when it happens, they are improvising under stress. A simple plan written down and shared with your household changes everything. It does not need to be complicated. It just needs to exist. Reduce your daily dependency where you can. This is not about living like a monk. It is about small habits that lower your baseline consumption so that when pressure comes, you have more margin. Shorter showers, fuller washing machine loads, a bowl in the sink instead of a running tap, a water butt in the garden collecting rainwater for plants and cleaning. None of these things feel dramatic, but collectively they reduce how much your household depends on everything working perfectly every single day. And in a system that is quietly losing its margin, reducing your dependency is one of the smartest things you can do. Now here is the part that ties all of this together, and it is the part I want you to really hear. The danger with water in Britain is not that the system is about to collapse. The danger is that the system is good enough, often enough, that nobody prepares for the times when it is not. And those times are becoming less rare. Burst mains are not rare. Boil notices are not rare. Pressure drops are not rare. Contamination events are not rare. They are just local and brief and quickly forgotten by everyone except the people who lived through them. And the question is simply whether your household is the one that gets caught out or the one that barely notices because you already had water stored, a filter ready, and a plan in place. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and comment below whether you have ever had a water disruption where you live. I want to hear the real stories because I think the picture across Britain is rougher than most people realize. And if you want the exact water storage and filtration gear I recommend, my full kit list is linked in the description. Go through it at your own pace and sort your water situation properly. And if you want to know what happens to a UK household in the first 72 hours of a serious disruption, and the mistakes that catch most families completely off guard, click the video on screen now. That video connects directly to what we covered today. Click it and I will catch you over there.